Okay, welcome, mabuhay. Welcome, mabuhay. Good evening to our participants in North America, basically US and Canada, and good afternoon to our participants from Europe, okay, the Middle East and Africa, and good morning to our kababayans in the Philippines and other parts of Asia. We are very honored that this presentation is being watched by participants from all over the world. Before we start, let me mention that I am Bobby Ticzon from Malaya, New Jersey, and we are very honored to present to you this 2-hour presentation about a crucial topic which is in everyone's mind. What really happened in the elections on May 8, 2022? But before I go into that, let me just put a 30-second spot on what Malaya does. Malaya is a cross-sectoral association of people who adhere to 3 principles, okay? The first principle is upholding human rights. The second principle is upholding Philippine sovereignty. The third principle is upholding true democracy. So as long as anyone agrees that these 3 principles are non-negotiable, then we don't care whether someone is far left. You can be as red as Lenin or Karl Marx, and or far right. Okay, so
Yes,
again, those are the 3 principles of Malaya: upholding human rights, upholding sovereignty, and upholding democracy. Okay, now let me tell you what this presentation is and what it is not. In the Bible, the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32 says, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Let me repeat. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We intend to uncover the truth about the election results and to ensure that the truth is made known not only to the entire Philippine population, but to the whole world. However, let me also tell you what this presentation is not about. This is not about promoting or encouraging any particular candidate, party, or advocacy. We are very honored to have the participation of our distinguished presenters and the attendance of many advocates for truth. This presentation is the culmination of a series of fortuitous events which started just less than 2 weeks ago, when one text led to another text, to another text, to another phone call, to another phone call, and so on. Let me now turn it over to the 2 moderators, Professor Tina Astorga and Attorney Oswald Magno.
Magandang gabi po at magandang umaga sa inyo saan man kayo naroon, mga kababayan. Ako po si Tina Astorga, isa sa 2 naatasan na moderator sa forum nating ito. Kasama kong moderator po si Attorney Oswald Magno. Kami nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo sa ating tipanan na ito at nagpapasalamat din po kami sa mga distinguished speakers natin na si Retired General Rio, Gus Lagman, Frank Ysaac, Attorney Mel Magdamo at si Retired Colonel Odono. Marami pong salamat at big warm welcome sa inyong lahat. To put this forum in its context, we want to present just the highlights of the final report of the Philippine elections 2022 based on the 5 months of monitoring the campaign period, the election day, and the post-election period by the International Observer Mission. And what is presented here are just some highlights, high points of their executive summary. So the first one there is Philippine elections 2022 failed to meet the standard of a free, honest, and fair election. Number 2, elections marred by a higher level of failure of electronic voting system than ever before. Number 3, vote counting was neither transparent nor reliable because of the failure of many VCMs. Number 4, vote count not credible because of the unbelievable speed in the transmission of election returns. Number 5, only 480,000 of OFWs voted out of 1.7 million registered due to voter suppression and other obstacles. Numerous election-related human rights violations, including political killings, arrests, harassment, large-scale red tagging, widespread vote buying, media manipulation, fake news, harassment of journalists by Marcos campaign. A member of the International Observer Mission, former member of Australian Senate, Australian Greens, Lee Rhiannon, said this, and which I quote directly: "The evidence is overwhelming that the national elections failed clearly the people of the Philippines. Marcos Jr. and Sara Duterte were not elected legitimately," unquote. So these are the topics covered in this forum. The first topic is vote rigging by retired General Eliseo Rio and Gus Lagman. And then we proceed to the writ of Mandamus case by Attorney Mel Magdamo. And then we end with the impeachment of COMELEC by retired Colonel Leonardo Odono. Oswald.
Hello mga kababayan, ako po si Oswald Magno. Meron po tayong order or sequence ng mga speakers ngayong gabi or umaga. Mauna pong magsalita si General Rio at ang kanyang tatalakayin ay yung mga latest developments po tungkol sa election rigging. Kamakailan lang inilabas ng COMELEC ang sinasabi nilang mga transmission logs. General Rio will talk about the truthfulness and sufficiency of the transmission logs. Susundan naman po siyang mag-present ni Atty. Mel Magdamo. Atty. Magdamo will explain to us what the Mandamus petition is all about and what the possible impact is of the released transmission logs on the pending case in the Supreme Court. Ang final segment po ng ating forum ay tungkol sa move to impeach the COMELEC commissioners na inumpisahan at itinataguyod ni retired Colonel Odono. So having said that, I will turn you over to Tina.
Okay. This is regarding question and answer. Meron po tayong question and answer or QA after each segment of about 10 minutes. Kung meron po kayong itatanong, please send your question in a message sa chat to our host, Mila Magno, at paki-identify kung kanino yung question. Salamat po.
Okay, so mag-start na po tayo. Ipapakilala ko lang briefly si General Rio po. General Rio is probably one person who needs no introduction. However, I'm just going to highlight briefly his career. Si General Rio po ay isang retired Brigadier General. He was Commissioner of the National Telecommunications Commission from 2001 to 2002, almost 2 years. He was appointed to that position by President Cory Aquino. And he was also Secretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology from 2017 to 2019. He also held executive positions in the private sector, including as chairman of the board of Nextel Philippines and as president of TruePhone. So please help me welcome General Rio.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Oswald Magno and Dr. Tina for inviting me to this forum. No? I am going to make my presentation short so that we'll have more time for the question and answer. Chris, if I may have my PowerPoint presentation, please. Okay, you heard Dr. Tina. Dr. Tina said that in one of the conclusion of the observations made by that international body that came to the Philippines to observe our national and local elections in 2022 is the unbelievable speed that occurred in the counting. No, for the first time in history, we have that speed in our election. In fact, it is the fastest count in our election history in the Philippines. No? And in that first hour alone, that is where the counting peaked. And it is, we thought that is unbelievable. No? And even the international observer thought so. The first results of the national election of 2022 that we saw was, of course, from the transparency server. Okay. From May 9, after the closing of the polls, precincts on 7 p.m., up to the afternoon of May 13, we saw the progress of the counting done by the COMELEC transparency server. No? And you can see that there are irregularities in the results. First, as what has been observed is the 20 million plus votes that occurred in the first hour of counting. The first time that this occurred, this record, no, in our Philippine history, that we have the highest count done on the first hour, and it cannot be explained, no? Why, if we had 20 million votes counted in the first hour from 7 to 8, how come the second hour from 8 to 9, the counting dropped to almost one half, 13.2 million, no? And in fact, in that first hour, there are still administrative matters that has to be done. And the longest of which is the printing of 8 copies of the election returns of the precinct, no? And we did a time and motion study on that when I was also, or when I was the chairman of the COMELEC Advisory Council as the acting secretary of DICT. That takes around at least 30 minutes. No? So the earliest time that transmissions can be made after 7 p.m. would be around 7:30. So as you can see from this chart, 7:30 to 8, 20 million kaagad ang nabilang, no? But the whole hour from 8 to 9, which is twice the time that was done in the first hour, it's only 30 million. So yun ang amin naging agam-agam noon, no? And of course, look at the vote ratio of all candidates, hindi lang si BBM at si Lenny, no? But all the 10 candidates presidential, 5 of which are shown here, no? The 5 top-notcher. Look at from May 9, 7 p.m. up to 4 days later, afternoon of May 13, halos hindi nagbabago yung constant vote ratio. And this is statistically impossible. All mathematics students will tell you that, no? And of course, the last count, the 31 million of the president is of course the highest, no? Last election, 2016 election, the topmost was of course President Duterte, who got only 16 million votes, 1/6, no? So this is almost twice as much as what President Duterte got in 2016. And of course, we know that the vice president got even more than 31 million. She got 31.5 million. Again, a first in our history that the vice president got more than the president. And also the first time in our history that both president and vice president got more votes than the top-notcher of the Senate, no? That is, in fact, even also highly statistically improbable. So this led us to request COMELEC to please show proof that there are transmitted election returns in the first hour that will actually prove that 20 million were counted by the transparency server. No? Because the transparency server can only count the votes being transmitted to it by the VCM. It cannot count more than what is being transmitted to by the VCM because that would be fabricated already. No? So we wrote formally a letter as as concerned citizen and using the right of freedom of information to please show us the transmission logs that will show that there were really 20 million votes transmitted from 7 to 8. Hindi ho kami sinagot. Wala hong sagot sa amin. But on October 18 of last year, 2022, COMELEC came up with a forum, and that was sponsored by the Ateneo School of Government, and showed a graph, no, entitled accumulated VCM transmission. And you can see from this graph that, but anyway, in that graph of October 18, no, about 5 months after election, COMELEC came up with an official graph showing the accumulated VCM transmission. And in that graph, we immediately notice that the transmission peaked at the second hour. At the second hour, when transmission began, which is in contrast with the first hour peaking of the transparency server, no? So nagkaroon ng discrepancy. Sabi ng transparency server ay nag-peak yung
Analyze nila.
Malu, Lapurga, please. Pakimute ang kuan mo, please. Ay, what? Nag-pick yung sa transparent server, nag-pick yung counting sa first hour. Pero dito sa nakita nyo na nag-pick ng 9:30, no? 9:30 p.m. 9:32 p.m. nag-pick yung counting sa transparency server. I'm sorry. Ng 8:02 p.m. nag-pick yung transparent server counting, no? So ito yung graph ng transparency server count, no? Okay. October 18 nagpakita ng graph ang COMELEC, no? On the accumulated VCM transmission. And nakita kaagad namin, this is the original. We did not make any changes on the original graph shown by COMELEC. Itong graph na ito, these are already the official results, no? Because October 18 na proclaim na yung mga kandidato, no? So these are the official results. The transparency survey results, by the way, are unofficial. Kaya yung nakita natin are unofficial, no? So we have to wait for the official results. But in these official results, the VCM peaked on the second hour. Again, in contrast with the first hour peaking of the transparent server, no? And you'll notice that from 0 hour, it is the start of transmission, to second hour later, it is practically a straight line. No, hindi nagbago yung speed of transmission. And that is about 500 VCM per minute, no? And so please find that the transmission peak at the second hour while the transparent server peak at the first hour. Okay. Sige, pwede na ito, no? But pwede na ito so that we can save time. So you'll notice at once that the orange line, please, pakibalik, please. Yan, okay. You'll notice that the orange line is the graph shown on October 18. October 18 of 2022, no? There is an intersection between the graph shown on October 18 and the transparency server graph that we got from the May 9 election, no? And that is on 9:32 p.m. So you'll notice that from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. of May 9, bumibilang yung transparency server, yung blue line, no? Bumibilang yung transparency server ng mas mataas pa sa na-transmit. Ibig sabihin, for example, ng 8:02, sabi ng transparency server, 20 million plus na votes nang na bilang nila. Pero doon sa graph ng October 18, ay ang na-transmit lang ng VCM is only around 11 million. No? So na-fabricate. Saan ang galing itong yung 9 million, no? Na difference? Saan galing yan? The only source of what the transparency server can show or can count are coming from the VCM machine. Kung yun lang ang na transmit 11 million, saan ang galing yung 20 million na pinakita nila sa mga taong bayan ng 8:02, no? So yun kaagad ang aming naging question. Then of course you all know that on March 23, about 3 days ago, kinuha namin ni Colonel Odono yung hard copy na matagal na namin hinihingi. July 14 pa namin hinihingi yon. Nabigyan niyo nga kami ng pruweba through transmission logs, para masigurado natin na 20 million talaga ang nabilang ng first hour, no? So ginraf din namin yung nakuha namin ni Colonel Odono, yung hard copy nung ang binigay lang sa amin actually is just the first hour transmission, no? That's about around 500 pages hard copy. Ginraf namin kaagad yun and found out that hindi magtugma yung graph that was shown on October 18 last year to the graph of the transmission logs that was given to us on March 23, 4 days ago. So ibig sabihin, bumalik yung umpisa tayo sa transparent survey result na kaduda-duda. And by the way, they deleted all data in the transparent server for whatever reason. Wala na yung mga data sa transparency server. And even those reporters covering the transparent server count, puwersado silang ipa-delete ng PPCRV yung mga nakopya nilang data, no? So, wala na. Pero nagpalabas sila ng October 18 ng graph at doon natin nakita kaagad na may discrepancy because nag-peak ito ng 2 hours habang nag-peak naman yung transparency sa first hour. Then nakita natin, mapunan natin na yung binigay na sa amin yung data logs, nagtugma na ngayon yung transparency server at yung graph na binigay nila sa March 23 sa amin, no? Pero ibang-iba ang graph ng pinakita nila ng October 18 sa amin sa graph ng mga transmission logs na binigay sa amin ng itong 4 days ago, March 23, no? So yun nga, ito nga yung ngayon ay nakita namin there is a circle of deceit. Nag-umpisa sa transparent server data na pinwestiyon namin. Nagpakita sila ng graph ng official results on October na doon namin napunan na hindi tugma yung graph ng transparent server na nag-peak ng first hour habang ito naman nag-peak ng second hour. And then and then yung binigay na sa amin yung official results, no? Tumugma na ngayon yung transparency server at yung kwan, bakit kung ganun pala, bakit pa nila dinilit yung data ng transparent server kung yung pala at that time ay yung mga transmission reports ay tumutugma rin sa transparency server, no? Pero nagkaroon sila ng hilis na data na pinakita ng October 18 na pinuna namin, bumalik ulit doon. And ang discrepancy ngayon is that this time, instead of 7:30, nag-umpisa yung transmission, which is reasonable because it takes about 30 minutes to do all the tasks, no, that the general instructions of COMELEC tells the teachers to do. The longest of which is to print 8 copies of the ballots, no? It takes at least 30 minutes. Ito, ginawa nilang 8 minutes na lang. 8 minutes to print 8 copies of the election result. Kaya 8-8 nga tawag namin. It is impossible, really. And in fact, we have challenged COMELEC, show the public by an actual time and motion demonstration that it is possible to do all the printing, the administrative matters in just 8 minutes, no? Hanggang ngayon hindi nila tinitake up yung challenge. And so itong mga napuna namin, no, sana I could show it to you sa PowerPoint, no? But anyway, I think you get the idea that there was a cycle na parang dinodoktor. In fact, we are convinced that they changed the time, the start of the time from from 7:30 to 7:08 so that maipasok na mga transmission so that they can say now, oh ito, 20 million nga ang nabilang o na-transmit ng 802. Which they showed only on 4 days ago, March 23. No? Why did it take that long? Almost 1 year na eh. Why did it take? Simple lang pala eh. Doon na pala yun eh. So those are questions that they have to answer. No? And a smoking gun is, we are about to expose another smoking gun. NAMFREL, it is a watchdog also of our election, discovered that yung source code na nilagay sa mga VCM machines, no, there are 107,000 VCM machines, ay nabago. No? Nabago. At pinuna nila ito at hindi sila, hanggang ngayon, hindi sila sinasagot ng COMELEC. Kung may bago sa source code, yung na-obserbahan natin na nangyari sa 2022 election, na may duda sa counting at lahat, ay pwede mangyari. No? So yun, hindi pa pinakondemn. And we will present more as we go on, more evidence, no? Na talagang itong dalawa na lang eh, yung dinoktor, yung source, yung transmission lag na kinuha namin ni Colonel Odono noong March 23 at yung hindi nila sinasagot yung pagbago, illegal ng pagbago noong source code, no? Dahil sa kung mabago yung source code, pwede mo na ngayon ilipat yung boto ng isang kandidato sa isa. So yun. Ito nga, I'm speaking now as Gus Lagman. In fact, Gus Lagman came up with reform of our election, no? By having the counting transparent, kita ng tao yung pagbilang sa presinto, and then automated yung pag-transmit for canvassing yung mga resulta ng mga boto sa presinto, no? So with that, maybe we can entertain more kasi hindi napapakita yung lahat ng slides ko, but maybe that will come up in the question and answer. I gave a copy of my PowerPoint presentation, which you can publish, no, in your website. There's a question here. I think, would it be, can I read this question?
Yep.
Okay, can you explain how the change of source code can alter the result? Yes, the source code, no? If any vote for candidate A, put it in candidate B's name. So that can be, that can be written in the change source code, no? Question, would it be possible to correlate, reflect, link, and match of the details transmission in the transmission log posted COMELEC, no? Yeah, this is the posted in the COMELEC website last March 23. Yes, actually COMELEC already made public on October 18 the official transmissions, no? Not as detailed as what they presented on March 23, but a graph that shows how the transmissions occurred from our zero, from the start up to finish, no? And we saw at once that the if we graph also the transmission lag that were given to us to Colonel Odono on March 23, hindi ho magtugma. Hindi ho magtugma yung October 18
Yan ang total.
and itong binigay sa atin ng March 23, hindi magtugma.
Okay.
So that is already a red flag, no? You cannot do that. I mean, kung sa bangko yan, magkalis ka lang ng 1 centavo or 1 cent, red flag ka agad yan eh. Ito pa, boto pa ito, no? involving millions of votes na hindi tumutugma. So yun ang nakita kaagad namin. Hindi tugma yung graph na pinakita ng COMELEC, official graph na pinakita ng COMELEC ng October 18 at yung graph ng binigay nilang transmission lag nitong March 23, no? 3 days, 4 days ago. I hope that answered the question, no? And because of this also, we are appealing to poll watchers of all political parties, no? Nandun na kasi, nasa website na ng COMELEC yung first hour transmission logs, no? From 7:08, yun ang nakita nating umpisa noong transmission, 7:08, which again we are questioning, how can they perform printing 8 copies in 8 minutes, no? Sa 7 and 8. Pero sinasabi nila, well, nag-close yung presinto before 7 at doon nila ginawa yung printing and so forth. But that is illegal. You cannot close. Illegal yun. You cannot close the precinct before 7 because ano kung may dumating na voter na mga 1 minute before 7 at close na kayo ng mga 6. Do you disenfranchise that voter, no? And that is against the law. That is a strict requirement of COMELEC. You cannot close before 7 because it may disenfranchise voters, no? So doon sa pinakita nila 7:08, mga almost 10,000 of the precinct closed before 7. That's tinanong namin sa COMELEC dan, when we met them last March 23, they said they will be made to explain. They made to be explained. But ngayon lang, isang taon na yung election, ngayon nila papa-explain. Well, anyway, that answers that question.
Please clarify what additional information you need, whether from COMELEC or the telcos, to establish the truth about the questionable early results. And
Okay.
what actions are you and your team planning to take to obtain such additional information?
Okay, so as far as COMELEC is concerned, they have given us all the information that we need, no? But of course, we have to verify this from another source. And we are looking at the telcos. The telcos also carry a log of what they transmitted during those times, no? Because, and in fact, that is why we went to the Supreme Court on November 3 of last year. Petitioning the Supreme Court, MANDAMUS petition, for them to order COMELEC, and the telcos, the JCOC, the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee, and the CAC, the COMELEC Advisory Council, to preserve whatever transmission data they have. So, until now, hindi pa sumasagot, no? November 3 pa ito, no? Hanggang ngayon, wala pang sagot ang mga telcos, pati COMELEC, hindi pa sumasagot eh. But we have already suspicion that because COMELEC gave already publicly, they published the results of the first hour of transmission, eh baka na kausap na nila yung telcos na delete nyo na yung mga transmission. Kami na lang ang hahawak, no? So wala na kaming kwan. But now we are going to the political parties, I have said, no, to please kung ano yung mga nakikita nyo, because all political parties have what we call the transmission report, no? What time the VCM in their in the precinct that they're watching made the transmission. Kahit isa lang na mayroong makapakita ng transmission na hindi tumugma doon sa pinakita ng COMELEC, that is enough already to ensure na talagang anomalous yung pinakita ng COMELEC.
Okay.
So we are working on this now. We are working on this now. But we will need help. We will need your help, sana.
One final question. If the telcos give you call detail records, will that be enough? Will it be necessary to conduct an independent audit?
No, the CDRs of the telcos are quite, you know, they cannot change that by law. It is against them to alter anything there, no. So this will be more credible, no. So if we can have access to the CDRs of the telcos, then I think that would be enough to settle the matter. But what if the telcos already deleted their CDRs, no? Yun ang hindi pa namin alam, bakit hindi pa sila sumasagot eh.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, General Rio. Tina, please.
Okay. All right. Let me briefly introduce to you our next speaker, Attorney Melchor Magdamo. Attorney Magdamo was former court attorney of the Supreme Court and was also former senior attorney at the COMELEC. He was very much involved in the preparation of the Mandamus petition, which is currently pending before the Supreme Court. He continues to be actively involved as a legal advisor to the TN Trio. Among other things, Attorney Magdamo will explain to us the status of the Mandamus petition and what are the next steps following COMELEC's release of the so-called transmission plugs. Please help me welcome Attorney Magdamo.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants of this Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I wonder if I can share a screen. If not, it's okay. 8 JPEG slides, or it's not possible. Or do I email it to? But anyway, I can just go on verbally. Okay. I will just while waiting for a response from technical, briefly, sa background, way back 2007, I was still a court attorney in the Supreme Court, and 2008 I was called to the COMELEC to serve as one of the senior attorneys there, reporting directly to the chairman of the COMELEC at that time, Justice Melo. And I was with that batch that brought in Smartmatic into the Philippines. So then there are so many anomalies there. Then I tried my I had my own share of fighting with the anomalies there in COMELEC until around 2010. And then from 2010 to 2020, I sort of lie low. I sort of gave up in trying to clean COMELEC. Then around 2019, I remember, by the way, when the chairman of the COMELEC Advisory Council was Secretary Rio. He was Secretary of the Information and Communications Technology, and he is also the chairman of the COMELEC Advisory Council. During time and motion studies on studying how to improve the process, the polling process, there were time and motion studies there, and I saw him there. And although we don't know each other, I know him. He does not know me. We conducted time and motion studies at that time, and it really takes around an hour to complete the poll closing procedures. And if you do it in a very high speed, it will take not shorter than 30 minutes. It's because there are many steps. Now, around March of 2022, last year, around March last year, the number of registered voters in the Philippines is 65 million. And that alarmed me because...
Sir, we cannot hear, we cannot see you. Can we ask the host to pin you as the host? Kasi nakikita namin, iba po, everybody is already asking.
I don't know how the
The host
administration.
could do that po. Yung the host could do that para ho mapati yung mga participant ma-mute kasi we cannot hear you po and see you. The host has the capacity po.
Yun.
Ayan na po.
Yan na,
Ayan.
kayo na po.
Okay. Let me start. The number of registered voters in the Philippines, they increase at an average of only 1% per year or 3% every election year. Meaning to say, if there are 1 million voters this year, the increase is next year is only around it averages only 1% per year or 3% every election year. But in year 2022, last year, the increase of number of voters is shocking, the biggest ever in Philippine electoral history. It increased by 28%. The average is only 3%. So the total number of voters for last year, 2022 elections, is 65 million registered voters. It was a jump from 50 million. And that's the biggest ever in Philippine electoral history. So there's a big question mark here because if you recall, year 2020 and year 2021, they are COVID years. And hardly anyone made an attempt to register because it was COVID. And yet, despite 2 years of COVID, the increase in registrants is the biggest ever in Philippine electoral history, reaching 65 million. So there's a big question mark. How many in these 65 million registrants exist as real human beings? And how many of them are mere electronic creations? So now, around March of last year, that is 2 months before elections, during public forums, I raised that. I spoke in some public forums and raising the alarm about 65 million registered voters. That is statistically improbable, and no one paid attention except the very few who understand, the mathematicians, the statisticians. Only the few who understand paid attention. Then came this on election day. We have this mysterious 20 million votes coming in the first hour, which is also very, very improbable. So although I am not a friend of, before that we are not friends with Secretary Rio and also the other one, Gaslagman, I was not close to him, and also Frank Ysaac, we don't know each other. But during public forums, we shared our views, and then I became interested with the report of Secretary Rio about the mysterious 20 million because I myself, I said that the total number of voters, 65 million, that is alarming. So finally, I met Secretary Rio, we compared notes, and then we noticed that there's really something is wrong, something smells fishy here. And then around middle of July, during the public forums, we keep on saying this, and our notes keep getting stronger, getting more consistent with each other. So we decided, let's write to COMELEC to ask what is this mysterious 20 million votes that came in during the first hour, which is very unlikely. No? So around middle of July, if I'm not mistaken, July 14, we wrote a letter to COMELEC. And then we wrote many more follow-up letters to the COMELEC Advisory Council, to the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on Electoral Reforms. And after writing so many letters, and on July 30, there's this mysterious fire in COMELEC. The 7th floor burned. So because of this alarming development, and there was a new appointee in COMELEC at that time because the 7th floor is the data center of COMELEC. And if that burns, that means that the data center itself is one of the most important part of election data management. No? Then Marcos, who was already, Bongbong Marcos, who was president at the time already, he appointed Nelson Celis as one of the COMELEC commissioners. And for the specific purpose of trying to rescue data center because Commissioner Nelson Celis, he is an expert in information technology, and he knows how to construct data centers. And then this Commissioner Nelson Celis, he hired me as consultant. So I had an opportunity to investigate that fire, because if you look at the pictures of the mainstream media on how they depicted the fire in Comelec, you'll notice in mainstream media, most of their pictures, you'll see fire trucks in front of the Comelec building. The fire was behind the Comelec building. You don't need fire trucks in front of Comelec building. You don't need to park the fire trucks in a grand way to parade them in front of the Comelec building, because the fire station is right beside the Comelec building. When I was still in Comelec before, we had fire drills. Because the fire station is just right beside, what they do during fire drills is they just let the hose go up the building. The hose, they can interconnect the hose. In fact, I remember during a fire drill, they were able to let the hose climb up all the way to the rooftop, to the 9th floor. The 9th floor is the rooftop. The hose can reach all the way up there. So you don't even need the fire truck. So I'm wondering, how come? What's this fire? No? And then why are the fire trucks in front instead of behind? The space behind is a lot bigger, and the fire was behind. So again, when I saw the actual site of the fire, it was only a chair and a desk, and the smoke did more damage than the fire. In the report of the Bureau of Fire Protection, the smoke did more damage than the fire. In the internal report of Comelec, the water did more damage than the fire and then the smoke. So internal report of Comelec, they're sort of blaming the firemen for hosing too much water. In the fire report, they are not really blaming. They're saying that the smoke did more damage than the fire, because the smoke, when they enter the servers are useless now. By the way, the servers in Comelec, they're useless now because of the smoke, or maybe because of the water. They're pointing fingers at each other. But anyway, that after that mysterious fire of July 30, I became concerned. No, so I became more interested in meeting General Rio and Gaslagman, and let's do something about this, because there's something fishy going on. So I was still a consultant of Comelec at the time. And then October 15, that was a Friday. That was 3 days before the October 18. There was an event in Ateneo School of Government. And that event was actually an opportunity for Comelec to brag, to say that the May 9, 2022 elections is the best elections ever. It's the fastest. That was a bragging session it was in a hotel, Sofitel, but the sponsor of the event was Ateneo School of Government. The host was Christian Exguerra, and the Comelec was eager to participate because it was sort of a bragging session to boast that it was the best elections ever. And the PowerPoint presentations distributed to the people, to the public, included a graph of the accumulated vote counting machine transmissions. And to me, that graph is one of the most accurate, I think, because the mood at that time was to brag, no, to magyayabang sana, no. Pero they made a mistake of including that graph, because it's a truthful graph. If we follow that graph, it would indicate that the peak of the transmission is past 9 o'clock in the evening, past 2 hours. So, but the one who made that graph, because I was still a consultant at that time, no, I had an opportunity to review, and I noticed there are other lines there. They're saying that they're trying to compare with 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019. I said you cannot compare that, because in 2010 the closing time was 5 o'clock. In 2022 the closing time was 7 o'clock. You cannot compare that. But anyway, they keep it that way. So, but the curves are there. The curves are precise. They're telling the truth. In fact, it's the most truthful admission. Comelec, they were not aware that will give them a headache later on. And then during the forum, open forum of that October 18th event, there was a question asked, how come there's a discrepancy between the PPCRV transmission servers and the accumulated vote counting machines? Because in the official report of COMELEC, the peak is sometime around 9 o'clock in the evening. Whereas the PPCRV, the peak, as they say, is 7. It was originally 7:17. 17 minutes after 7. And just a few days ago, they made it 7:08. Anyway, so because of that incident, we are already sort of holding already a smoking gun, and that smoking gun came from COMELEC itself, because their intention was to magyayabang sana, and they included this crucial graph. No? So on October 18, the Secretary Rio, Gaslagman, and Frank Ysaac, they wrote to the telcos requesting preservation of the call data data records details, no? Because with the graph of COMELEC, if you match it up with whatever is the telcos are holding, then you really have a rock solid evidence, no? But only one responded, which is Dito Telecommunity. However, Dito Telecommunity, they only hold a very small percentage of the total number of data transmissions. What is important is the one being held by Globe and Smart, which is more than 90%. Then, because COMELEC kept on ignoring the Rio, Gaslagman, and Isaac, now at that time they are being referred to by social media as TNT Trio, Truth and Transparency Trio. I sort of prepared a petition in the Supreme Court known as the MANDAMUS petition. It's actually requesting the telecommunication companies to preserve, because actually there was already a release, a partial release. The October 18 data of COMELEC is one of the best releases ever. It's the most reliable, actually, except for a few gaps, no? Just minor gaps. So we were requesting the telco to preserve whatever they're holding. We can match it up with the October 18 official release of COMELEC, official data on the accumulated vote counting machine transmissions, no? And then after filing that case in the Supreme Court, we were ignored for how many months? 5 months. 5 months, no? But later on, the social media became a buzz about it, and then the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, since COMELEC Chairman George Garcia is blaming PPCRV for that mysterious 20 million, and a few weeks later, PPCRV answered back, no, it's not PPCRV. They passed the blame back to COMELEC. So nagtuturoan yung dalawa, no? COMELEC and PPCRV. Until it reached the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. We had a meeting there, high-level meetings at the CBCP. On January 20, the PPCRV showed to us, the TNT Trio, the soft copy Excel file of that, the one that came out a few days ago. They're insisting it started 7:08, 8 minutes past 7. No? Instead of 7:17 in their original transparency report as of May 9, it became 7:08, 8 minutes past 7. And then, of course, we find it ridiculous, no? So we did not accept that, and the CBCP where we met, they were sort of trying to reconcile us with PPCRV. The CBCP was the venue, so we did not accept the PPCRV's report. We said it's too incredible. So on January 29, at the plenary of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, we presented our respective presentations, and PPCRV did not attend. I don't know why they were absent.
Attorney
So-
Magdamo, can we
Yes.
go to the question and answer now?
Yes,
Please?
yes.
Okay. All right. We will see what are the questions that are other questions. What would prevent the telco to preserve the data? Can we ask the Supreme Court to force the telcos to preserve the data?
Oh, now, The question is, what would prevent the telcos to preserve the data? They preserve it. Of course, they will say, right now, they're not saying anything yet. No? Under the law, they have 6 months to preserve it. And then that 6 months period will extend depending on the circumstances. And that's precisely the reason why we filed a case in the Supreme Court, because we're already, at that time, November 3, when we filed it, we were already approaching the 6th month. So we're sort of requesting the Supreme Court to tell or command the telcos, do not erase it first, because that is of historical value. I don't know. Hopefully, the telcos will do something patriotic. If ever they keep quiet about it, perhaps they will keep quiet about it until year 2028, or they are, of course, watching what the events going on. If Zoom meetings like this become more prolific, and if more and more people become aware of what really happened last year, then I'm sure the telcos will consider the option of being patriotic, of revealing to the people what they are holding in their call data records. So it depends on people like you to inspire the telcos to become patriotic.
Okay, please explain what is the objection of the 708 and 717 data reported.
The 717 data was the very first ever reported by PPCRB on May 9. When PPCRB, that was May 9, no? In the transparency server. On October 18, COMELEC released a graph indicating that the first transmission cannot be 717, it cannot be 708, it can only be past 9 o'clock in the evening. So because of that, they were not aware that we were keeping an eye on it, and we made it. We filed a case in the Supreme Court precisely because of that October 18th admission. PPCRB decided to change their figures to pull back all the way to actually the initial attempt was 6:30. Because I met I have friends in PPCRB. They said they pulled it all the way back to 6:30 before 7 o'clock. I explained to them that's unlawful. You cannot close earlier than 7. So they move it again to 7:08. That was moved many times. It went all the way to 6 o'clock. Some even said 3 o'clock because in areas where there are terrorists. But the official stand was 7:17. It became 7:08. It became past 9 o'clock in the official of COMELEC in the October 18 forum. Then now it's back again to 7:08 as of May 23, as of 4 days ago.
Yeah. What happens now to the Mandamus petition now the transmission logs have been released by COMELEC?
The Mandamus petition is still very much alive. It does not depend on that what was released by COMELEC, because we can ignore that. That's a scrap of paper. Anyway, the Supreme Court shifted the focus away from COMELEC because COMELEC took so long to answer, and then they released something a few days ago. The focus shifted to the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on election reforms, which is JCOC, which is Congress. It's very rare for the Supreme Court to implead somebody. Usually, if I sue, for example, I sue only 3 persons. I sue only Oswald and Christina, and the case will remain that way. It's very rare for the Supreme Court to say, "Oh, you also sue Bobby Ticzon. You also sue this Eliseo Rio." The Supreme Court impleaded the 2 other major entities, the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee and the COMELEC Advisory Council. That rarely happens. We did not expect that. So the Supreme Court is sort of transferring the hit away from the court and pushing it to the legislative branch of government, which is the Joint Congressional Oversight Committee on Electoral Reforms, the JCOC.
Why are the telcos not voluntarily voluntarily releasing call data records or CDRS, are they bound by confidentiality agreements with COMELEC?
The telcos asked the same question. And that's why the telcos want the Supreme Court to rule on the matter first. But in fairness, dito telecommunity is willing to, they committed. But what they committed is actually not really that, it's too small to affect the outcome of the case. What we need is from Globe Telecom and Smart Communications. The telcos, since this is the first time for such an issue to arise, they were not expecting this. In previous elections, the telcos were not expecting this angle of questioning. But because our main petitioner happens to be the Secretary of Information and Communications Technology, this is a novel question. It's our first time question for the Supreme Court.
Okay. Okay, I think this is the last question. So we can go to the next, Oswald. Thank you so much, Attorney Magdamo.
Ikaw na Magno. Did the Supreme Court order the telcos to submit a response, the same as COMELEC? And if so, have they submitted a response?
Okay. The Supreme Court ordered the telcos also to respond. But we do not know yet if they requested for extension of time, because COMELEC requested for extension of time. The request for extension of time will go directly to the Supreme Court first, so it will take quite some time before we, the petitioners, learn about it. So as of now, I don't know yet. But there's the order is a blanket. It applies to all, to COMELEC, to Smartmatic, to Globe, to Smart, to JCOC, to it's requirement for all to comment.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Attorney Magdamo. That was very helpful. And now, allow me to introduce to you our third and final speaker, Colonel Odono. Colonel Odono, who is retired, is a graduate of the Philippine Military Academy. He graduated in 1960. He's now retired, as I said, and among his many post-retirement activities is writing articles for the Philippine Daily Enquirer online edition. Colonel Odono has been in the news recently for having initiated a movement to impeach COMELEC commissioners. We will learn from Colonel Odono what has prompted him to call for impeachment and whether the impeachment movement will continue in light of COMELEC's release of the so-called transmission logs. Please welcome Colonel Odono.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Let me give a little background about how I came into this initiative to go for the impeachment of the commissioners of COMELEC. The TNT trio, in 4 months of waiting, did not receive from COMELEC proof of transmission of the questionable 20 million votes. They went to the Supreme Court for a writ of MANDAMUS to compel COMELEC and the telcos to preserve the transmission logs for future audit and investigation. I informed General Rio that as a concerned citizen, I could and I should take over the TNT trio's unfinished business with COMELEC. He agreed. So on November 26, 2022, I wrote COMELEC to ask for the same information that the TNT trio failed to get from the COMELEC. I specifically informed and mentioned in that first letter of mine that I was making the request in the exercise of my constitutional right of access to information of public concern in the hands of any government agency that is within the purview of the freedom of information regime in the country. I also reminded COMELEC that the law requires them to respond in 15 days, failing in which will constrain me to resort to legal remedies, in this particular case, impeachment of constitutional officers, which the committee commissioners are in Congress, and filing of cases with the Office of the Ombudsman against the non-constitutional officers of Congress. COMELEC did not answer in 15 days. I sent COMELEC 3 follow-up emails to remind them of my request per my November 26, 2022 letter. I thought I should give COMELEC more time to reply, even without them asking for it. On March 10, 2023, having waited for more than 100 days without reply, I wrote COMELEC another letter with my final demand to give me the required information in 7 days, or I file an impeachment complaint against the commissioners that I have warned them many times about in my previous correspondence to them. After the 7-day final deadline lapse, I specifically warned COMELEC that I was ready with the articles of impeachment. On Thursday, on March 23, 2023, COMELEC provided myself and General Rio with the transmission logs, which we have been waiting for more than actually 252 days. I am filing the articles of impeachment soon, after at least one congressman endorses my complaint to the House of Representatives. Unfortunately, Congress is on a 30-day recess beginning next week. My impeachment complaint against the COMELEC is for betrayal of public trust and culpable violation of the Constitution on the following major grounds. 1. COMELEC tampered the transmission logs to justify the 20 million votes having been counted and transmitted in just 1 hour. Number 2, COMELEC violated its constitutional mandate on the right of the Filipinos to information of public concern when it kept the transmission logs under cover for 252 days since the TNT Trio first asked for it on July 14, 2022, making public the transmission logs only when I informed COMELEC in no uncertain terms that I am filing my complaint and the articles of impeachment are ready. Number 3, COMELEC attempted to mask the truth, keeping the transmission logs in secrecy, with the executive director in his letter to me saying COMELEC is denying a request on a very wrong premise. He said RA 9369 prohibits disclosure of data that will identify how a voter voted. Our request was for proof of transmission of the 20 million questionable votes. Number 4, COMELEC failed to have the electoral returns signed by the Board of Inspectors, public school teachers manning the voting precincts, in violation of COMELEC procedures to ensure transparency of election results. 5, COMELEC failed to observe safeguards on random manual voting being conducted in one precinct or congressional district in the province or city. Number 6, COMELEC violated the Constitution and betrayed the public trust for handling closed door printing of ballots. Number 7, COMELEC ignored the report of NAMFREL, the poll watchdog, that revealed software flaws and warnings of potential cheating. Number 8, COMELEC betrayed the public trust by allowing and giving the application for candidacy of Governor Ruel Digamo Negros Oriental for violation of the law prohibiting a fourth consecutive term for the provincial governor. The impeachment complaint requires that the House of Representatives to hear the impeachment case and decide whether or not there is a probable cause. The Senate shall put the impeachment case on trial. I am morally convinced that the May 9 election was rigged and that we have a strong impeachment case against the commissioners. COMELEC, under these commissioners, destroyed our people's trust in the integrity of the election process with its culpable violation of the Constitution and betrayal of public trust. They ought to be removed from their positions and prevented from being appointed or elected to other positions in the government. Maybe we want them to be in jail. God bless our benighted land. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Colonel Odono, for your discussion of the issues related to impeachment. So we will now ask you some questions that have been forwarded to us. So the first one is, do you consider the transmission logs you received from COMELEC complete and sufficient? Who will advise you on whether the transmission logs are complete and sufficient?
I would call the transmission logs doctor.
Doctor.
I do not think it is sufficient. It is doctor.
Doctor. Okay, so the next question related to that is, will you proceed with your impeachment complaint if the transmission logs given by COMELEC are not complete and sufficient to uncover the truth about the questionable early election results?
I determined to file and finish this complaint, whatever happens.
Have you found a member of the House of Representatives who will accept and sponsor your impeachment complaint? If so, who?
It's two gentlemen in Congress. Unfortunately, we have not received any word from them.
Okay. So Tina,
Yeah.
do we have time for more
For more questions.
questions? It's only 11:21, so I guess we can accept questions. Yeah, more questions, but please direct them to the presenter, okay? Anyone in the audience or the participants can ask questions now. Antonio Villasor, please go ahead.
Yes. Can we ask COMELEC to be part in our investigation? For example, we can set a forum, a kind of a forum, public forum, to shed light on these issues, alleged data anomalies and all these figures that are very incredulous. Kasi kami sa PIPCRB, we are also, I'm also part of PIPCRB, but I cannot speak for the whole PIPCRB, but we are also surprised that this came very late. Kasi ang una naming reaction sa ER's election results, they are so slow, no? Mabagal yung, or mabilis din sa UST, pero we took time to have it transferred to UST. Pero after that, ang bilis, doon sa presinto on the night, nagulat kami, including the international observers, that yung 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, were very, very fast. Nagulat kami doon. So we were just empirically bystander. Nasa labas lang kami, hindi naman kami IT expert. So yung surprise namin, rather we dull our senses noon. Medyo nagulat kami. So maraming mga PIPCRB are also disheartened, of the slow results. Na katulad nito, ibig sabihin, this is a very welcome laban ito, no? This is a good fight for transparency, good governance, for accountability of our government officials. We know we have the law, the RA 9369. Hindi naman yan perfect law, no? Pero hindi rin yan ibig sabihin na abusuhin. So we can fight along these lines, no? Especially if we have the good data. Yan lang. Let's set up a good forum for 5th CRB and all the stakeholders to fight it out.
Is that possible po, mga presenters? Do you agree with that?
If I may, Oswald.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, in fact, we welcome PPCRB. In fact, the first organization that we approached was PPCRB, and they were very helpful also, no? And of course, they also asked the same questions that you did. What we were asking before from PPCRB are the transmission reports that were given to them, to their poll watchers in the precincts. They timestamp that the VCM of that precinct transmitted the election returns, no? Unfortunately, wala rin sila maibigay sa amin because that transmission report is left doon sa mga watchers sa presinto at hindi pinapadala sa central office. At kasi hindi yung pinapansin noon eh. Ang pinapansin is yung election result mismo, no? Yan ang pinapadala sa central office ng PPCRB. At yun ang binilang ng mga volunteers ng PPCRB, no? And we allowed PPCRB on there. Pero yun nga, doon nag-focus yung irregularidad, no? Doon sa first hour ng counting na yun, na even our international observer noticed, no, na masyadong mabilis. In fact, it is a record in our election history na nakapagbilang ng ganyang karami ng first hour. And in that first hour, remember, mayroon pang gagawin eh, na kailangan mag-print ng 8 copies ng so hindi ka agad makapag-transmit ng pagsara, hindi ka agad makapag-transmit dahil may gagawin pa. So yes, we have a forum, pero depende lahat ito sa magiging publiko dapat. Ito ginagawa namin is to make the public aware that we have to do something to improve our election system. Kung hindi natin ma-improve ngayon, this will be the same election system that will be used in 2025, 2028, and years beyond that, no? Ngayon COMELEC, Smartmatic na naman ang kanilang gagamitin sa 2025. In fact, it's election. So, anong improvement natin doon?
Okay, so let's thank you very much, General Rio. Can we call on the next participant to ask the question? How about Soc Reyes?
Thank you very much, and I'm very interested in this forum and in the campaign of TN Trio. My question to General Odono, the impeachment that you're going to file requires 1/3 of the votes in the House of Representatives and 2/3 in the Senate. We know that both houses are controlled by BBN. So how do you expect this impeachment case to proceed? And I know that you raised very valid arguments, but looking at, outcomes, what do you think will happen?
Who are you asking the question to?
Oh, to Colonel Odono, to General Odono.
Okay, Colonel Odono.
Colonel, I'm sorry, I promoted you already.
Thank you. Actually, when I thought of filing the impeachment complaint, I never entertained the hope that I will win, knowing the situation, the political situation. But the least that we can achieve is that we have brought this up to the people for them to make a decision about improving our election system. And maybe if there is people power to compel Congress to act on my impeachment, that would be helpful. But let me say at this point, I'm not very hopeful that my complaint will go very, very far.
Okay, thank you very much, Colonel Odono. Salomar Villaper, please.
Yes, thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. My question is simple. By the way, I'm a journalist, a lifetime member of the National Press Club, and presently the senior correspondent of Manila Standard for Bulacan. And I am a publisher of a local weekly, the oldest newspaper here in Bulacan. Now, my question is, we all know what happened during the election. Actually, sa mga presinto nga po, after 7, kakain muna yung mga teacher. Huminto muna sila, nagpaalam sa mga watcher, sa lahat ng tao. Alam po natin nangyari yan. Sa Quezon City nga po, rumble pa. Sa ibang parte, away pa. There was no complete data available by 7 p.m. But we were surprised when we heard, see, and watched the result on the TV, the most influential TV, the remaining TV right now. We were all shocked to hear in the news that there was already some 12 million votes for the losing ahead. 12 million votes against the losing candidate. So we all know this. Alam po natin yan sa bawat presinto. Lahat po ng bumoto, lahat bantay po tayo. Ang tanong po, ano po ang pinaka-potent case that we can master in order that we could come up with a forceful movement that can realize all the result that we want. Yun po, I address that to General Odono and Attorney Magdamo. Thank you.
You know what? You may find my opinion quite too far in the future, no? But I believe what we need now is people initiative. But do it locally, not under Republic Act 373, not under Republic Act 6735, but use the local government code, people's initiative. And why do it on a per barangay basis? Because it's similar to what Marcos did in 1973. He used citizen assemblies. We organize citizen assemblies. We use barangay. We use the local government code, section 398B. Because it's in the barangay level, we will be able to prove that around 10 million registered voters do not exist. The database of COMELEC and the database of the DILG, they are mirror images of each other. The criteria is citizenship, a residence of 6 months, and age. So they should match. The local government database must match with the COMELEC database because they are mirror images of each other. If we do a ayuda database, the database of who are entitled to receive ayuda or help from government, we will be able to prove that a huge number of voters do not exist.
Oh gosh.
By the 10 millions. So just by letting people pursue their own self-interest, letting people down the villages, down the barangays, letting them pursue their own self-interest of having an ayuda database so that they will be receiving ayuda, you will end up proving that the ghost voters, a huge number of voters of last year's elections, they are ghost and they do not exist.
God.
So that's my suggestion. People initiative. What Marcos did in 1973, the father, what Ferdinand Sr. did in 1973, do it to the son. Give them a dose of their own medicine.
And if I may add, yeah, COMELEC now downloaded in their website the date timestamp of all the transmission. No? The first hour that the earliest transmission was, of course, as we know now, is 7:08. No? Now, we request our citizens, especially those who became poll watchers during that time, and our political parties who have access to the transmission record of each precinct, to please check or testify at exactly what time did your precinct transmit. No, there is some record in the precinct about that. PPCRB would have, I think, the most record on that. Kasi kahit isa lang na mapakita natin na transmission record na nanggaling doon sa BCM, no? Na ito ang official record na anong oras nag-transmit yung BCM na yan, at hindi yan tumugma sa pinakita ng transmission logs ng COMELEC, may kaso na tayo. Kahit isa lang. Kahit isa lang po.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to Engineer Rod Abarientos?
Abarientos po.
Abarientos?
Yes.
Sorry.
Hi, kumusta po kayong lahat dyan? Nandito po ako ngayon sa Amerika. I'm one of the board members of the U.S. Filipinos for Good Governance. So, I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah.
Kaya attentively na nakikinig ako sa inyo ngayon.
Sama mo si Lloyd and Nicolas.
Yes po. Opo.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, maraming salamat po sa inyo sa pagpapaunlak ninyo na makasama rito ngayon at mabigyan nyo ng pagkakataon na magtanong ako. Meron po ba tayong konkretong ebidensya na nakalap na tungkol dito sa election fraud or BCM irregularities?
May I answer that?
Opo.
Well, may nakita niyo yung international observer, no? Ito dapat ay mga neutral, walang kakatigang mga kandidato. Ay talagang sinabi na ang ating election are not believable, no? Ganyan. And in fact, mayroon pa silang statement that President Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte are illegitimate ang kanilang pagpwesto. So galing yan sa mga international, no? From their observation. So ibig sabihin, kung kaso yan sa korte, may prima facie. Ang problema, yung mga korte natin or organization natin ng gobyerno, ombudsman, mga ganyan, ay dapat imbestigahan to. Walang gumagalaw eh. Pumunta na nga sa Supreme Court. Nagsaing na kami doon ng mandamus petition. Hanggang ngayon, walang resulta. So ito ay kailangan, no, kung hindi mag-action ng gobyerno, ginawa na ni Colonel Odono, magsaing na sa Congress, no? So, pag walang action, ibig sabihin, may tinatago. And dapat, ang action magagaling na sa taong bayan. Kasi kung pabayaan natin to, ganito na ito palagi.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kung natatandaan ko po kasi, wala tayong hinain na protesta bago magkaroon tayo ng proclamations ng mga winners eh. Kasi kung meron tayong protesta before the proclamation, siyempre kailangan na aksyon doon. Kasi it's mandato ng batas natin yun na kailangan magkaroon ng aksyon bago magkaroon ng proclamation. Sa isang protesta, So ang problema ko kasi natin ngayon, maski na magkaroon ng resulta yung protesta natin ngayon, matatapos na yung tenure nitong mga nanunungkulan sa atin ngayon, parang mababaliwala na rin ito.
Hindi namin pinadaan sa protesta. Tayo ay private citizens, no? Pero tayo lahat ang nagboto. I mean, we have a stake. Bansa natin ito eh. So kahit na walang kandidato magprotesta, hindi ibig sabihin na tayo na nakakita ng mga irregularidad ay dapat pansinin, no? Pansinin. Hindi yung parang wala nangyari. Move on, palagi nasabi. So kung ganito, payagan natin ito mangyari sa atin, hindi tayo gagalaw, baliwalain na lang, eh siguro kawawa naman mga anak natin at apo. Yun lang.
Okay, let's move on to the next participant. Why don't we call on Mickey, please? Mickey?
For Attorney Melchor, I'm from Build Pilipinas, also fighting disinformation. You mentioned na the result might not be, I mean, yung evidence na nakukuha nyo might not be enough to change the result. Ano po yung magandang gawin moving forward?
Ano kasi, I'm looking forward na there will be so much resistance from COMELEC, from Congress. There will be so much resistance. That's why I think the last recourse we have is people initiative. By just, even if we don't succeed, we just initiate the process, we will be able to prove the existence and non-existence of people who were reported as voters, but in truth they did not exist. If we do it down at the grassroots level, that's our last remaining hope. Because if you go to Congress, they are also products of the same cheating machinery. I mean, you cannot expect them to admit that there's something wrong with the election system, because they themselves, they are product of the same election system. But if you do it by people's initiative using local government code, not Republic Act 6735, because that will also pass by COMELEC. Use the local government code, which will not pass by COMELEC. Section 398 of the local government code, which by the way is what Marcos did in 1973, so that he will bypass the Congress at that time. He did that he used citizen assemblies to get his 1973 constitution. And we can do that the same, because the law on citizen assemblies way back 1973, it is still in our local government code today, in section 398 of our own local government code, which means every barangay every barangay assembly, which is different from the barangay government. Barangay assembly is people. This is a private group. This is people themselves. This is not the barangay captain, barangay kagawad. No, that's different. These are ordinary village people organizing themselves as citizen assemblies and asserting their rights using existing laws. The very same law which Marcos used in 1973 can be our legal pressure to pressure the top from down going up. Or the other way of doing it is give the military a good reason to listen to the people.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Let's go to Attorney Jesse Emmanuel.
Yes, good morning po. My question is, could the election results for President and Vice President be different if the COMELEC's secretly configured SD cards were seasonably nullified by the proper judicial authority through a proper legal action and by the proper party in interest? This question can be answered by Attorney Melchor Magdamo and also by General Rio. Thank you very much.
Anyway, the petition we filed in the Supreme Court is not an election protest. It will not benefit any particular candidate. It will not benefit Lenny. It will not benefit Sarah. It will result at most. It will result of failure of elections, and it will call us not elections.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
We only have 15 minutes left for the Q&A. Let's go to Bobis.
Salamat sa pag-recognize. Ang tanong ko na kasi itong nangyaring dayan-dayan tong last election, maraming mga mga kumilos noong election parang sinasabing parang ayaw na nilang mag-participate sa election, ayaw na bumoto. Yung na nawalan ng gana, no. Tingin ko paano yung natin? How are we ito experience na to, no? Paano natin to itutulong nito para mapaghandaan yung 2025 election, no? Kasi kailangan mag-participate pa rin tayo doon and to prove that democracy works in the Philippines, no? So sa ganitong konteksto parang ano yung itong experience to, ano yung may tulong nito para mabantayan natin yung ating mga boto sa 2025. Yun na po.
Colonel Odono? Or...
Yes, I think the most important thing is yung impeachment, because that will prove that the commissioners themselves violated the Constitution, violated betrayed public trust, and I have enumerated the grounds on which the case can be based. So, with that, that gives the presumption that the COMELEC was guilty of fraud in the election. You don't need any more proof. We don't need any more proof. So it's up for the people to pressure the Congress to work on the correction, on the impeachment case. We have to tell the people, kumilos tayo yung makialam, because we are the only, we can only chance to stop this vicious cycle of election after election being tainted with irregularity. Kahit pa nang sabihin natin solusyon, pag hindi kikilos yung tao, walang mangyayari sa atin, believe me. So nakikiusap ako sa taong bayan, kumilos kayo. Masyado kayong ayaw makialam. Nandito na kami, nagsisimula na kami, sumunod kayo sa amin. Yan ang paraan. Pag hindi kayo kikilos, hindi na rin kami kikilos. Magpapahinga na lang kami.
Jake Agabaw, please.
Maraming salamat po. Dito po ako sa Northeast USA. Ito pong katanungan ko para kay Colonel Odono or malamang kay kay General Rio, dahil sa mga dating miyembro ng Sandatahang Pilipinas, ano po sa palagay nyo ang pangamba ng taong bayan sa pagtawag nyo na magwelga na pangalawang People's Power Revolution natin? Dahil ang kinatatakutan ng karaniwang tao yung reaksyon ng mga nanunungkulang sandatahan, miyembro ng militar ngayon. Ano ba lakas ang impluensya ni BBM sa militar? Lalo na nung ako nung 86 po, UP rin po ako, nagmarcha ako nung EDSA Revolution. So, nung nauna nga po ang mga tao, kung hindi sumunod ang mga nagkudeta, sabihin na natin, ng mga militar, walang mangyayari, di ba? Ano po ba ang inaasahan ng karaniwang Pilipino ngayon? Kung ano yung magiging win-win or zero-sum resolution sa mga irregularities na to? Coming from your military perspective. Malalim na tanong, ano? So, sige po.
Sensitive po yung tanong.
I know
I can answer that. I will tell you na yung military, hindi kikilos yan kung walang sinasabi ang taong bayan. Yung military, susunod lang yan sa kagustuhan ng taong bayan, because under the Constitution, they are mandated to protect the people's interest. So pag hindi kikilos yung mga taong bayan, hindi kikilos yung military, believe you me. So gusto nyo kumilos yung military, kumilos tayo, taong bayan. Yung military by itself is constitutional. They follow the law, they obey the Constitution. Kaya kung hindi kikilos ang taong bayan, hindi gagalaw ang military.
Okay, thank you, Colonel. Dindo, please keep your question short.
Yeah, good morning. Totoo po, no, we have to involve yung taong bayan, pero ang napansin po kasi is parang kulang sa ingay sa mainstream media yung ating cause. Bakit po kaya ganun? Ano po kaya pwedeng, kasi yung taong bayan, siyempre pagka laging pinag-uusapan niya, then they will be aware of it. Ano po kaya pwede natin gawin para makasama natin yung mainstream media in informing yung taong bayan?
Okay, yeah, that's a nice question. And nasagot na rin ni Colonel Odono. Kami sa military, especially the professional ones, hindi kami kikilos ng, we follow the chain of command, no? And sa mga intelligence namin, we have been assessing the situation. And I am with the intelligence service, no? And ito lang ang masasabi ko, no? We are following the situation. Walang isang kandidato na nagprotest, no? Mahal kasi eh. In other words, and then kung ang number of lamang nung kalaban mo is 14 poya, hindi mo na kaya talaga. In fact, we think that is one of the reasons bakit talaga kailangan malaki ang ang magiging lamang, no, para hindi na makapag-protest. Pero ang kuha namin is ito, no. Ito ang assessment namin sa military. Kung ang gobyerno natin ngayon ay maganda ang palakad, ibig sabihin gaganda ang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas, sasaya ang mga tao, ang presyo ay babagsak, ang bigas ay magiging 20 pesos, kahit na perception ay nagdaya ang pagkapwesto nila dyan wala mangyayari talaga. Pero pag ang gobyerno natin ay hindi maganda ang palakad, nakikita natin na mayroong mga corruption at ang ekonomiya natin ay bumabagsak, magugutom ang karamihan ng tao, pati sundalo magugutom. Doon ka makaasa, no? And I think ang kwa namin is that kung hindi mag-improve the way that our government is running things now, no? Before the end of this year, doon na makakita tayo ng mas malaking grumbling. Hindi tayo pinapansin ng mainstream media because mukhang kontento pa yung mga tao Yun ang ating kon. And well, we are of course hoping, no, kahit anong mangyari, na talagang mahusay ang palakad ng gobyerno natin dahil yan ang in-expect natin. Kahit nagdaya sila sa perception natin, nagdaya sila, pero maganda naman ang paglakad ng gobyerno, walang corruption, may peace and order and everything. Wala, kontento tayo dyan. Pero kung hindi, kung nakikita natin mga sariling interest nila ang kanilang inaatupag at hindi yung interest ng tao, doon ka makaasa, no? At once may spark yan, ang military, dahil maapektuhan din ang mga pamilya ng mga military dyan. So yun po ang aming assessment sa ating mga sitwasyon ngayon.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to recognize Frank Ysaac. He's here. He's the third TNT trio. He's very quiet. But the question I'm going to ask is to Odono and to the TNT trio. Are you working together on this cause? Or what exactly are you trying to achieve? You're working together.
That question, Colonel Odono, sir, go ahead, please.
In a sense, we are working together, but we were not part of any group until Ll.B. Rio told me that something was wrong in the election. So he started working on it. Once I was convinced that there really was something very wrong about the election, I joined the group.
Okay.
Yes, that's true. And Colonel Odono is an activist, no? And he did many things against corruption in the military. So talagang saludo kami kay Colonel Odono.
Thank you. There's 3 participants who are lined up to ask a question. It's now 11:56.
Wait, si Frank wants to say something.
Franklin.
Frank, you want to say
Yeah,
something?
just I've been listening naman for about 1.5 hours. Malayo ako sa ano. I'm here with my daughter. Anyway, yung kay Mel, there was a question about the October 18. I was listening to the forum doon. Si Chairman George Garcia, when he was asked by one of our kasama natin tungkol doon sa telco. Sabi niya kung pwede daw sabihan ng telco. So, ito yung sinabi ni Attorney Mel regarding doon sa telco, no? Kung pwede i-release. Ang sabi ni George, and this is on record, I will call the commissioners in bank and will pass a resolution to compel the telco to release yung CDRs. That's on record. And nothing happened. Okay? So, I wrote about that and sabi ko, you know, I was saying, Lavico, they've been inconsistently telling lies after lies after lies. So, my conclusion is, if you're lying, you have to lie all the way, right? So that is what's going to happen here. And kami naman po, we've been telling ourselves that we cannot just go out into the streets, etc. We follow the law. That's an advice of our lawyer. And that includes Attorney Mel, sina Gas, at si Eli. We went through the whole. Napagod na kami sa buwan na kami. And yet they're giving us a run around. So what is next to our petition? We're meeting with Attorney Gabin on Wednesday. And we'll ask him for guidance. Because yung sinasabing extension na yun, sabi, what's going to happen? So we want to make sure that we are still on the right track legally. And if there's any other way, then we will ask his opinion. And we will do something whatever he says kung anong gagawin namin. So yan pong masasabi ko lang that, we're doing our task ourselves. Thank you for all those comments. We'll take them into consideration lahat po. Yan lang po. I have to go now.
Thank you,
Can I
Frank.
give my comments? I have some comments. As far as I know, there is a non-disclosure agreement between COMELEC and the telcos. And they are invoking on that. So nobody releases, no telco will release any document about the election. So really, they are only recourse is a Supreme Court order the telcos to provide the documents that we need. What else can?
Are there more questions? It's what time is it now? It's 11. It's 11:57.
11:59.
11:59, and we're supposed to finish at 12 o'clock. So I'm asking the audience, do you want to extend for 10 minutes or for 10 minutes?
So let's go to Gregorio Macaraig, please.
Yes, sir. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. First of all, I would like to thank yung mga nag-spearhead ng TNT, kay Colonel Odono, kay former Secretary Rio, and Attorney Magdamo and Franklin Ysaac. This is just a very short question. I know and I'm supporting this initiative at nagpapasalamat po ako doon sa mga nag-umpisa nito. But alam natin po na lahat ng initiative na ito isuntok sa buwan base sa sistema natin dito sa Pilipinas. Ang akin pong tanong is, I think, meron tayo dapat nakaakibat na action plan kung paano ang gagawin natin sa susunod na 2025 election at 2028 national election, na kung paano yung ganitong anomalya or fraudulent transmission will not happen again. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat po.
Magandang tanong yan, no? Dahil kaya nga yung isang aming advocacy ay talagang magkaroon ng election reform. Palitan na ang Smartmatic. Si President BBM mismo ay nagsabi noong 2016, the Smartmatic is a cheating system available to the highest bidder, no? Eh bakit ngayon mukhang tahimik na? Si President Duterte rin, ako yung DICT noon, binigyan niya ako ng instruction. Secretary Rio, let us change Smartmatic. So nagkuhan kami, nagkuhan na kami na baguhin yung Smartmatic into an open, ang tinatawag dito ay hybrid election system ni gas lagman, no? Na yung transparent na pagbilang sa mga presinto at automated yung transmission para mabilis, no? Yun nga, nung after the 2019 election, wala na. Nakita na may dayaan din nung 2019, no? Walang kahit isang opposition na nanalo. So ibig sabihin, parang ang Smartmatic ay nabubuhay dahil nabibigay nila ang gusto ng mga politicians na nakaupo ngayon. So doon tayo dapat siguro mag-concentrate, no? In parallel to whatever, siguraduhin natin magkuhan tayo na baguhin na yung ating election system na maging more transparent. Dahil actually itong mga pinag-uusapan natin dahil hindi natin nakikita kung paano binilang boto, nag-depend lang tayo sa isang makina na siya ang magbilang ng boto para sa atin. So yun po.
Salamat po.
Kragi, please.
Gusto ko lang pong request si Among Ed. I guess he is still in the audience. Kasi po nabanggit nyo kanina na parang walang ginagawa yung mga ordinary citizens. Hindi po. Yung po, kahapon po naggawa ng meeting sa Chancery ng San Fernando to regroup the Lenny Kiko people. Pwede po bang makapag-report si Among Ed tungkol sa nangyari kahapon? Nire-request ko po si Among Ed na i-report sana niya yung nangyaring regrouping ng Lenny Kiko kahapon sa San Fernando. Just to prove na meron pong ginagawa yung mga ordinaryong tao sa pagkilos.
I'm here po, I'm here.
Sige.
Sige po. Salamat po, Among Ed.
Actually, yung pong forum kahapon is more to prepare for the incoming elections. Ano po? It's not directly related to this initiative ng TNT Trio. Ano po? But I believe kahit na mag-prepare po, the point is to prepare early for the incoming elections, yung barangay election, yung 2025, 2028 election. But the point is, dapat pong harapin natin itong pinag-uusapan natin ngayon. Kasi kahit na po napakaagang mag-prepare ngayon ng mga kandidato, kung hindi po maayos hindi po naisaayos ang electoral system natin, wala rin mangyayari. So ako po personally, I support the initiatives po nitong grupo natin na talaga namang yung electoral system po na talagang napakasama ay ayusin po natin. Yun lang po.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Juliana, please.
Yes. Good evening, everybody from San Francisco. I just wanted to ask a question from the people organizing this. What if you could please give us normal citizens a set of specific actions, instructions, or whatever we need to do so that we can get moving. Otherwise, we cannot organize ourselves to be behind all of you so that we can get something done. I want to just tell you that I was surprised. I'm a businesswoman. I was surprised. I was in the Philippines checking out our business there in early December. And I happened to meet somebody. I asked my VP of sales to organize a meeting over and asked that fellow what he has been up to. He's an IT professional. And to my surprise, at a coffee meeting with that person, he told me exactly how how the elections were cheated upon. He said he was on the IT committee of this BBM campaign. And I was sitting there shocked listening how it happened. And I said, is this the reason why the votes amassed so quickly, 10, 12, 15 million votes, however many votes? He says yes. And he said it was ordered by the wife of BBM to ensure that he had an absolute, an excellent, exceptional lead that nobody could question. I mean, and yet as a private citizen, I don't know who to talk to about this. I tried to talk to several people asking if there's any way that anybody can do an electoral protest, citizens or whatever, and they said no, only the person who ran for office who thinks they've been wrong, and they have to be able to have the actual specific smoking gun for this. And I mean, and it costs a lot of money also. They gave me the figure for it, for every vote that has to be counted and all of that. And which precincts, and it can't be done by just imagining things. You have to have an idea that, that something already went wrong somewhere and name the precincts or whatever. And so I don't know what to do. I feel, helpless and hopeless, and yet I don't like what I've seen happen, and I don't like seeing what's happening in our country, even if I'm not living there at the moment. So please tell us very specifically what citizens can do, step 1, step 2, step 5, step 10, whatever, so that we can stand behind you and do something. If we have to do it at the barangay level, at the whatever LGU level, whatever, just tell us what we are supposed to do, because I don't know what it is, even though I have voted and I keep up with all of these things. Anybody?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, that is what we need. Citizens like you who are itching not to do something, because if we do not do something, then we will be, first, what I said, the COMELEC has already shown the time lags of the different transmission, from the different precincts. So the citizens compared who witnessed the voting in these precincts will know how long it took the printing of the ballots, how long the actual transmission of the election returns was made. If they can just make an affidavit that I have witnessed that in this precinct, the transmission was at this time, let's say 7:45 p.m. And now we can check. We can check that with the transmission logs that COMELEC gave us or gave the public. And if there is just a second discrepancy, or let's put it more realistic, a 1-minute discrepancy, then we have a case against COMELEC. They could not, a 1-minute discrepancy, just one, is enough to put down the whole transmission log that they show the public. It's like banking. If you have just a 1 centavo discrepancy in your balance sheet, that whole balance sheet is will not be accepted. So that's one, no? And second, we need, of course, more voices that we have to change or reform our election. Because if we will have the same election in 2025, where they can, manipulate the voting counting machine, we will never improve as a country. So yes, thank you very much for your support. So initially, step by step muna, because we cannot give you the whole way to do it. Step number one, let us check the correctness of the date time stamp being shown to us by COMELEC.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So how can somebody provide us, any of us, with what is the process for this?
Yes, please go to the website of COMELEC. They have the list there. find out which is the precinct that you are familiar with, or that you can, that you know what time the transmission was, and check if the time that is in that transmission log would be what your precinct BCM transmitted also.
Okay, so yeah, so another just very short question. Okay, so there was a professor from the University of Michigan, Professor Mabane, who actually went and did a statistical study of the COMELEC's 104,000 precincts and marked down which ones were the highly fraudulent ones, the likely fraudulent ones, etc., etc. So is it possible for somebody to lead the charge and so that, because we can get the data from him, he's happy to provide the data, and precinct by precinct, and go and try, if somebody puts the procedure across, then try to essentially give us the instruction of what we should do to find people in those precincts, to try to see about getting the information that you think should be gotten to prove something. I mean, can somebody give us those instructions, or whatever the thing is, and can somebody lead the charge so that we normal citizens can just help in some way? And is there anything? Yeah, and is there anything that can be done about the person? I mean, not about the person, to question the person who gave this information to me that I was shocked about. Without endangering people. I mean.
Yeah, that's why the organizer of this forum, this online forum, Attorney Oswald Magno, would be the right person for you to give all information.
Okay.
And Attorney Magno is the brother of Frank Ysaac, who is with our movement, and they can talk together. So Oswald can collect all information available in the outside of the country, especially in the United States. And once we get this, and we will be the one to act on it in the Philippines. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay.
I think we.
If you have any questions, you can just contact me. I'm on Facebook, and we'll try to respond to your question in more detail. So now we're just trying to wrap up this this forum. There's a few more participants who would like to ask some questions. So I see, for example, Cyrilla, please.
Okay, sir, is other data available, like the total number of votes historically on the presidential voters, and can be used as for this action of ours? Kasi nakikita po natin yung mga votes po ng mga presidential previous presidents po, malaki po talaga yung naging boto nung kay BBM. And then yung pong increase ng ating registered voters na 20 million since 2016 to 2022, ang lahat pong iyon ay nakuhan lahat ni PBBM. Hindi pa po ba yung sapat, yung mga ganun mga data po, yung mga statistical data na pwede natin gamitin aside from the transmission logs?
Yes, that is that many seem to overlook that huge number of ghost voters. Because we can prove that they do not exist by looking at book of voters, because every voter has a book of voter, a paper copy. Because you know what, there are so many who died and they are not being delisted. In the COMELEC, the election officers, criteria for their promotion one of the criteria for their promotion is a large number of voters in the database. So when somebody dies or somebody transfers or becomes an OFW or is no longer in the voters list, the election officer has no incentive for delisting the name. That's why the size of voters, the total number of registered voters kept on increasing and ballooning all the way to 65 million. And even if they no longer exist, even if they have already died, ginagamit pa rin yun, yung non-existent voters para as a cheating ammunition. Kaya we have to really look into that. In 2022, the jump was very big, from 50 million all the way to 65 million. And that's the reason why we have these huge numbers of fraudulent red flags.
You know, our apology to the other people who still would like to ask questions, but I think we have to end here. But before we end, I think Bobby would like to give some remarks first. Bobby?
Thank you very much to all who participated, and especially to our distinguished speakers and to everyone who made this happen. As I have said in the opening remarks, this happened in 10 days from the first time Mila and I talked. So there is this guiding inspiration, putting all of these linkages. So I just would like to close by again repeating what I said earlier, taken from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 32. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Ulitin ko, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, I'd like to finally close this. We are so inspired by the attendance. At one time, we had almost 380. We intend to have a sequel to this. Hindi natin tatapusin to ngayon. Nagsisimula pa lang tayo. We will have a sequel to this. Maraming salamat po again. Thank you very much. Have a good lunch. Kami naman dito ay siguro matutulog na. Thank you very much. Mabuhay ang sambayan ng Pilipino.
Mabuhay.
Why?
Bye.
Okay.
Tina.
So yes. So I think we want to salute TN Trio, the Colonel Odono and Attorney Melchor Magdamo for leading the fight, right?
Yes.
This is a people-citizen movement to fight for our democracy, the heart of which is a free and honest election. So maraming salamat po. Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We salute you. Okay, thank you.
So
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you very
We
much.
have the second one. We will
Subaybayan
plan
po
for the
natin
second
mga
one.
developments tungkol sa
Yes.
Mandamus petition at yung impeachment movement. At suportahan po natin ang TNT Trio at si Colonel Odono. Thank you very much sa lahat.
Thank you.
The video of this forum will be uploaded on YouTube and will be disseminated on other social media platforms for the benefit of those who were not able to join. Okay? Maraming
Thank you.
salamat po.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Mabuhay tayo.
The rigged 2022 election, a deceitful cycle. The results of the May 9 election was shown to the public by the COMELEC transparency server. Citizens noticed the incredible peak count of 20 million plus votes at 8:02 p.m., just an hour after voting closed. And more incredible is the count in the second hour, from 8:02 to 9:02 p.m., where the votes counted mysteriously dropped to just 13.2 million votes. Also, there occurred a highly incredible constant vote ratios for all candidates for president and vice president. And the highest number of votes ever gotten by a president, with the vice president getting higher than the president, and both getting higher than the senator top-notcher is a first in our election history. Please note that on May 9 at 9:32 p.m., there is a count of 36 million votes, which is equivalent to 60,000 BCM. This will be explained later in the following slides. The accumulated transparency server count that was shown from May 9 to May 13 can be made into a graph as shown in this slide. The peak occurred at 8:02 p.m. with 20 million plus votes. And highlighted here also is the 60,000 BCM results that were counted at 9:32 p.m. On October 18, 2022, COMELEC showed this accumulated VCM transmission graph in a forum that was sponsored by the Ateneo School of Government. It can be noticed in this graph that from the start of transmission at 0 hour to 2 hours later, the rate of transmission is a straight line. And this is in stark contrast with the transparency server that peaked on the first hour after voting closed. Here, the VCM transmission peaked at the second hour after transmission began. Also, from 0 to 2 hours of transmission, the graph is a straight line with a slope of 500 VCM transmission per minute, calculated as 60,000 VCM divided by 2 hours divided by 60 minutes. Any high school math student knows that if a point and the slope of a straight line is known, one can calculate all other points in that line. Now, if we get that straight line from the VCM transmission graph shown on October 18 and superimpose it with the graph of the accumulated transparency server count shown as blue line and the VCM transmission shown as orange line, and having the common point at 60,000 VCM that was counted in the transparency server count at 9:32 p.m., which is also what was counted as the VCM transmission at the second hour. This will intersect at 9:32 p.m. Maintaining the slope of the transmissions of the VCM at 500 VCM per minute, we will notice that the starting point will be at 7:30 p.m. And this was derived purely from mathematical method. So it can be easily seen here that at 8:02 p.m., where the transparency server count peaked at 20 million votes, the VCM transmitted only 11 million votes at that same time of 8:02 p.m. The transparency server was then fraudulently fabricating votes that have not yet transmitted by the VCM by around 9 million votes. On March 23 of this year, COMELEC gave us a hard copy of the transmission log of the May 9 election. And we immediately plotted the content of that transmission log, and it is shown here in this green line. And the transmission started at 7:08 p.m. of May 9. It is very clear here that now the BCM transmission closely followed the transparency server count of May 9 to May 13. In fact, the green line peaked also at 8:02 with 20 million votes. But it is very different from this orange line, which is the BCM transmission shown by the COMELEC on October 18, 2022. And this curve, this graph, was plotted by COMELEC themselves when they showed it to the public on October 18. No? And this is very different from this green line. Of course, the green line peaked at 8:02 p.m. first hour, while the orange line peaked at the second hour. And then the slope of the green line is much steeper than the slope of the orange line, which is 500 VCM per minute, and the slope here is 556 VCM per minute. To make the comparison better, we move the starting line of the orange line to 708, the same as that of the green line. But here you can clearly see that these two lines are very, very different. And may I repeat that this orange line was plotted by COMELEC themselves. But also COMELEC gave us this transmission log from where we plotted the green line. And these two should be coming from the same data. The data of October 18, 2022 should be the same as the data that was shown to us on March 23, 2023. But apparently, they are not the same. So there is a question mark here already. It is very clear that the graph of VCM transmissions shown on October 18, 2022 is very different from the graph derived from the transmission logs given by COMELEC on March 23, 2023. It is obvious that the transmission logs given on March 23 was to show the public that indeed there were 20 million plus votes transmitted by 8:02 p.m. of May 9, 2022, but in an illogical manner. That means that thousands of precincts were able to finish the 9 tasks required by COMELEC General Instruction in an amazing time of just 8 minutes. We have challenged COMELEC to prove that it is possible by an actual time emotion demonstration that all 9 tasks, the longest of which is the printing of 8 copies of the precinct election returns, can be done in 8 minutes. And this could be termed as 8-8. COMELEC must also explain the October 18, 2022 graph as to where this came from. Why was it shown to the public and 5 months later became a wrong graph? The COMELEC spokesman then even praised COMELEC's being able to pick VCM transmissions within 2 hours, when in the March 23, 2023 transmission logs, VCM transmissions peak at the first hour, just like the transparency server. Also, In order for the VCM transmission to peak at the first hour, VCM transmissions were not only made to start at an illogical time of 7:08 p.m., but the rate of transmission was also increased from 500 VCM per minute in the October 18, 2022 graph to 556 VCM per minute in the March 23, 2023 graph. The March 23, 2023 transmission lags complete a deceitful cycle that began with an incredible 20 million plus votes counted on the first hour of May 9, 2022, shown to the public through the transparent server, with COMELEC and PPCRB pointing at each other as to who is responsible for that count. 2. Deleting all data in that transparency server. To showing a more credible graph of VCM transmission in a forum on October 18, 2022. 2. Disregarding that October 18 graph in the latest VCM transmission data of March 23, 2023, which exactly followed the deleted transparency servers data. It turns out now that the unofficial transparency server data is the official election result shown in the March 23 transmission logs. A more evident smoking gun to follow is the discovery of NAMFREL, of a change in the source code that was downloaded in all VCM that could be the cause of all these irregularities observed in the 2022 election. This was reported to COMELEC by NAMFREL even before the May 9 election began. COMELEC is simply ignoring this discovery of NAMFREL. More evidence of rigging the 2022 election will one by one crop up in the near future.